Welcome to the Frequency Labyrinth. I am Adrienne McDonald, your host. This podcast is for you if you're done with surface level self-help and ready for something deeper and actually transformative. Around here, we work with ancient wisdom, human design, gene keys, and shamanic practices, not as knowledge to collect, but as tools to live by. This isn't about one size fits all. It's about learning to work with your energy, your design, and your life. This is about integration and embodiment. We go deep here with ancient wisdom, practical integration, so that you can develop ironclad self-trust. Let's get into it. Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back. Today we are going to talk about voice, specifically your voice, and working with your throat center in human design. Now the sun is transiting through gate 50, which is the gate of values, and then over the weekend it will transition into gate 28, which is, I think the official name is the game player. But the shadow of that gate is purposelessness, and the gift is totality. And I think it really speaks to where we need to draw courage, where we need to take risks. And we also have the energy of the sun in Scorpio squaring Pluto in Aquarius right now. So I think with that square, there's also that a little bit more pressure around, purpose, direction, ambition, action, motivation. There'll be a little bit more intensity around that. And when we talk about our voice, it's not just what you say, but how energy moves when you speak, sing, share, or even stay silent. I feel like the throat center is one of the most misunderstood centers in human design. Culturally, everybody wants to find their voice or speak their truth or manifest their vision. But most people have no idea how energy actually works in their system. So, and the throat is one of the busiest centers, if not the busiest centers on the chart. But it's also I feel like one of the most easily hijacked. We've been really conditioned to think that being visible equals being valuable. And that visibility may not be, that spotlight may not be the best of spotlights to be in sometimes. That we need to talk louder, post more, say something clever every day just to stay relevant. The real voice doesn't come from necessarily volume. It comes from vibration and frequency. And in human design, the throat is the bridge between energy and manifestation, the place where intention turns sound, word, or action. It's not just about talking, it's timing and truth and resonance. So in this episode, we're going to explore the three layers. The energetic truth of the throat center, how it actually works, and how some of the pitfalls, perhaps. And I want to I'll just touch on the archetype of Mercury, the messenger, and what your Mercury placement says about how you communicate your truth. And finally, I'm going to give you 3 practical ways to work with your voice energy. Now, it doesn't matter if you've got a defined throat or an undefined throat or an open throat. So you can speak when it's right. You can press the pause and say silent when that's the better course of action. And really start expressing yourself from resonance and essence instead of just random ego or pressure. Because your voice isn't just sound. Think of it as spell work in a way, right? Every word you speak either drains or directs your life force, your power. So let's zoom in on this center that sits right at the intersection of the mind and the body. It's the energetic translator between awareness and action. Now, the throat is I think it's the only center in the body graph that really can manifest, using the word specifically, manifest energy into form. Every other center sort of feeds energy towards it. And think of it as like a mouth of a river, maybe, that everything is sort of flowing through there before it reaches out to the world. You know, when we're talking about going into form. And it's also the center of expression. And, you know, expression is not always verbal. Sometimes it's movement or creativity or ritual, or sometimes it's just being present fully. And when it's healthy, the throat expresses energy cleanly, you know, without distortion, without, you know, and it's not forced. But when it is distorted a bit, when it's grasping for attention or validation or control, trying to prove or persuade or perform, and I would say not really necessarily persuade, but like manipulate. That's all the things that when it's healthy, it doesn't use those things. It doesn't have to, right? If you got a defined throat, you have a consistent voice in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have something to say. We see this on social media all the time. Your challenge is timing. You're designed to express when the energy behind the words feels alive, when you are in resonance, not necessarily when the mind decides it's time to perform. If you have an undefined or open throat, you're here to be a reflector of the voice, to amplify, to sample, to shape the language from your environment. You can sound like whoever you're around. And that's not necessarily authentic. Think of it as like an adaptive intelligence. But your work is to pause long enough to know, is this my voice or someone else's frequency that's running through me? Now I have a fully open throat. I have no defined gates in my throat. And I think that I think when you have a defined throat, there's pressure to speak all the time. And it's a lot like there's an expectation pressure. Whereas when you have an undefined or a open throat, I feel like the pressure is more like you have to be in the right environment, because if you're not in the right environment, people won't hear you. It's like screaming into the void. The one thing that I will say that I've experienced personally, and it's not just the fact that I have an open throat, it's multiple things in my chart, is but undefined and open throats tend to be able to call out things like the elephants in the room. When other people will like take note of that, right? They can be heard from that. But if you're not in an environment that's supportive to that, it really is like screaming out into the void. So being able to be okay with that level of pressure and choosing your moments where you are in resonance with, like, okay, this is mine, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I need to call out, is really important if you've got an undefined or open throat. Now, here's the interesting part. Most of the world has an undefined throat or open throat. And which means that we live in a culture of amplification. People echoing each other's words, trends, and tones. This is like the quintessential echo chamber, right? Because the world teaches us to talk before we listen. Are you listening to talk, or are you listening to respond, or are you listening to understand? Like, I think that was a Covey thing, and I think one of his golden rules was seek first to understand. In one of his books, that the throat doesn't really move on command. It moves when another energy from another center, like emotion or intuition or inspiration like reaches it, right? That's how the chart works, the centers work together. So before we talk about how to use your voice, we need to understand that it's not it everything that comes through it is carrying your frequency, whether that be fear or joy or integrity. And I think a lot of people, especially in the times of social media, feel like they have this pressure to be on all the time or to post just to post and that sort of thing. But when you think about ancient traditions, breath and sound they were more like sacred technologies, right? Words weren't casual, they were containers of spirit. In the Celtic lore, the poet or bard was seen as the one who carried the truth of the tribe through word and song. That, words could heal or harm, bless or curse, depending on the clarity and the intention of the heart behind it. So when your voice is used in truth and resonance, it builds power. When it's used to manipulate or flatter or fill space, it really does leak life force. So the throat is not just about communication, it's about creation. Like when you speak, you spell. When you stay silent, if you are staying silent with intention, think of that as incubation. Okay. Now, if you're staying silent because you feel like you're being silenced, that's something entirely different. And that goes back to one of my favorite quotes is when you have something to say, silence is a lie. But speaking from pressure is not the place you want to be coming from. Speaking out of obligation is not the place you want to be coming from. And with this culture of expectation of, well, you have to have an opinion about everything right now. No, you don't. You can take a beat. And if that something that they want you to have an opinion about may not be something that you resonate with to have an opinion about. And that's okay too. Now, when we think about Mercury from in astrology and in your human design, Mercury represents how you think, speak, and translate ideas into form. If you look at your body graph chart, on the right hand side, and you find your Mercury number, that's the numbers on the right hand side, and I think it's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's the sixth block down. It's the sixth number down. It has the Mercury symbol beside it. That is part of how you bring your message into the world. Okay, it again represents how you think, speak, translate ideas into form. It's the archetype of the messenger god in the Greek myth. With the wing sandals and the clever tongue and the one who could travel between worlds. Hermes was the only god that could move freely between the mortal and divine realms. He was a bridge. And that's exactly what Mercury represents in you, the bridge between your inner world and your outer communication. Your Mercury sign shows you how you convey truth. Your Mercury gate in human design shows what frequency that truth carries out. For instance, I have the gate of doubt in my Mercury placement. And I was not thrilled to learn that when I started looking at my human design. But the gift of that gate is inquiry. So part of my message in the world is I help people ask better questions through being curious about something. I help people ask better questions. I also have the line 1 there. So that also translates into I want to have a certain level of depth of knowledge before I usually go out running my mouth about something. So that's also how it manifests for me in particular. Now, in astrology, you can tell like a next level flavor of how this shows up in your life. Like if you look at your whole sign house chart on like astro.com or astroseek.com, if you have Mercury in Aries, you might tend to speak fast and direct and raw. And it's really like truth is an ignition, a spark. If you have Mercury in Taurus, it may come out as grounding ideas into rhythm and texture, embodiment, like truth is resonance. If you have Mercury in Gemini, you may dance between perspectives. Truth is curiosity and connection. If you have Mercury in Cancer, you may feel before it speaks. Its truth is emotional safety. If you have Mercury in Leo, it forms from the heart. Truth is inspiration. If you have Mercury in Virgo, that's an edits and refines and distills. It's truth as discernment, as service. Mercury in Libra is all about harmonization and mediation. Its truth is and truth is beauty. If you have Mercury in Scorpio, that's pulling the covers back. It pierces, it exposes. Its truth is revelation. Mercury in Sagittarius, it expands, it preaches, it creates this truth as adventure. Mercury in Capricorn, it structures and directs. Its truth is perhaps authority. And Mercury in Aquarius, it innovates, it disrupts. Its truth as liberation. And Mercury in Pisces, it dreams and channels and weaves. It's truth as the weaver. I actually have Mercury in Pisces in my 9th house. And that is some high-level archetypes. Of course, it also depends on what house it falls in and also what aspects Mercury has in your chart. But each Mercury sign shapes your voice, not just how you talk, but what you're drawn to speak about in the first place, right? Think of Mercury as your inner psychopump, the part of you that ferries the messages between the conscious and the unconscious, between your human and your higher self. And when necessary, it can be a little bit of that trickster energy that keeps you humble. The shadow of Mercury is its manipulation, its cleverness without embodiment. It's the voice that talks about truth but doesn't want to live it. It's the teacher who can explain the medicine but doesn't want to drink it. It's that the shadow is the double binding message, right? And that's when your voice becomes noise. Because if you're not walking your talk and you start talking the talk, some people will feel that there's something energetically off, right? But when you work consciously with Mercury, especially with the one on your personality side of your chart, you can look up the gene keys once you know that number, and really look at the shadow and the gift. You can really reclaim your ability to speak like from your soul level out, right? Your words stop being just marketing copy and really start bringing things in a form in a more meaningful way. And I think it would be really helpful to look at that placement and go, okay, what is my Mercury trying to say on behalf of my soul? And where am I still filtering it to make others comfortable? Because of the way Mercury is in my personal chart, I'm a disruptor. I'm a line 5. I've got Pluto in Virgo in my astrological chart. I tend to stay things in places where I make people think a little differently than they thought. I tend to look at something and say, okay, this could be improved, and here's some better questions to ask so that we could move us all up to a different level. I did this a lot in corporate. I would very much call things out and say, that's stupid, we're not doing that. Okay, we need to find a different way of doing this. I can say that on occasion I could have worded things a little bit more diplomatic, but hey, sometimes you just gotta call it like you see it. So let's get into some of the challenge. I feel like one of the biggest cultural myths around the center is that more visibility equals more authenticity. We are told to use our voice more, to post daily, to speak our truth, to share our message, but the throat center isn't a content factory. It's more, think of it as a frequency tuner. It's that if you speak from pressure, and I don't care if you're a defined, undefined, or open throat. If you speak from pressure, you broadcast static. If you speak from presence and from resonance, you transmit power. For people with defined throats, it could be talking too much, filling the air to maintain control or attention. You may feel restless when others don't respond. It may make you feel uncomfortable or push harder to be heard even when it's not the right time. For an undefined open throat, it's the opposite. You may feel silencing yourself until someone gives you permission to speak, or trying to mimic the voices that get applause. Honestly, I see that more, especially if you've got people pleaser, is the mimicking the voices to get the applause. But what they both have in common is both of them are performing. Both are chasing something external instead of generating it internally. And a healthy throat center does not perform. It responds. It expresses when the energy moves through its entire system, and not when the calendar says it's time to post. Now, if we take that even deeper, silence is part of the voice. The bard rests between verses. The healer listens before maybe saying the prayer. The void before the sound, that pause, that in between, it's probably not void, probably that liminal space. That liminal space before sound is what gives it power. So if you're in a quiet season, and we're all about cycles and seasons, right? It doesn't mean that you're invisible. It means that maybe you're incubating. You're not falling behind. You're deepening a frequency. It's entirely possible. So let's go into 3 ways that you can work with your voice energy. Take this down to practice of working with that energy consciously. Whether it's defined or undefined. So number 1, practice resonant timing. Stop forcing sound. Start sensing timing. Before you speak or post or present, pause. Where is this energy coming from? Is it coming from pressure or fear or obligation or the desire to manipulate or control? That is not the voice of your throat. That is your mind hijacking your microphone. If it's coming from an emotional wave, intuitive guidance, or deep in your body, that's real current. You got a defined throat. You're always going to have that voice, but not every moment is the right one. Wait until you get the signal from the body. Wait till the body fuels the words. Undefined throat, you'll feel the timing through the environment and connection. Wait till you feel the ping. Wait till someone is in the environment that can hear you, that has a capacity to energetically invite your words or your presence. Because that's when you're naturally magnetic anyway, in that regard. In both cases, the goal isn't to be consistent, it's to be congruent. Okay? Number 2, sound and silent rituals. Your voice is an instrument. It needs tuning. Try 5 minutes a day of intentional sound, humming, toning, chanting, even speaking affirmation louds, just to feel how your energy moves through your throat. Especially like the humming and the toning, that was not as much the chanting for me. although I know that works for some people. But humming and toning, I can feel like the energy rise up in my body when I've done that. And I was really surprised because when someone told me to do this, I was like, this is crap. And then when I tried it, I was like, oh, wow, and it's also a mood shifter. If you're struggling a bit, just humming or toning can be huge with that. And it doesn't take very long. Then balance that with 5 minutes of silence. Not scrolling on your phone, not thinking about your next post, not thinking about responding to some rage bait, just listening to your own frequency and what you're resonating with in the room. Now, for defined throats, sound helps you build up energy so that it doesn't leak as chatter. For an undefined or open throat, silence helps you clear other people's frequencies so you can hear your own again. You can also do this with breath work. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, whispering a word that feels alive, truth, power, peace. Let it vibrate out of you. All right, and number 3, it's looking at your voice differently. It's reclaiming the sacred word. In ancient traditions, the spoken word was a vow. It was a bridge between worlds. What you name, you nourish. What you curse, you cut. Every sentence you utter is a spell of sorts. I am tired. I can't. I'm trying. All of those shape your energetic architecture. And I'm guilty of this too, guys. I am so I'm tired. That is I can't tell you how many times I've said that, right? Language matters. Choosing your language with reverence, not necessarily rigidity. And maybe expanding your vocabulary when you're saying certain things, like when someone asks, how do you feel today? Instead of saying, oh, I'm fine, choose a different word than fine. Expand your vocabulary there. For defined throats, you may want to speak less, but make every word count. For undefined throats, release the pressure to fill up the space and speak move by truth, not by, anxiety. You don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. You just need to have the most authentic frequency in it. That should be your goal. Not necessarily to be the loudest, but to be have the most authentic frequency. And I'd say that goes online too. So let's circle back. Your throat center is think of it as your final destination gate before manifestation. It's where your inner world becomes your frequency, your vibration. And your Mercury is that mythic messenger who carries that vibration out into the world. And it is that combination with all the aspects in your chart, both from a human design standpoint and from your natal astrology chart. It's incredibly specific to you. It's uniquely you. And you got to remember that when you speak unconsciously, your words scatter energy. But when you speak intentionally, your words summon reality. So maybe think about these questions. When do I feel pressure to speak instead of... When do I feel pressure to speak instead of staying silent? What energy usually fuels my words? Is it fear, inspiration, or truth? What does silence feel like in my body? Does it feel like a threat, or does it feel like a sanctuary? And what does my Mercury sign want to express? And am I giving that room to breathe? Because remember, your voice isn't something you have to find. It's something you have to remember. And the throat doesn't demand. It responds. Mercury doesn't perform. It bridges. And when your voice and your truth travel together, the world listens differently. People respond to you differently. So speak when you have something to say and that you're in an environment that can receive it. And stay silent when it's wise. And trust that every sound really born from presence is already working its energetic magic in motion. So, if this episode resonated, share it out with somebody who's been doubting their voice or feeling invisible. And if you want to explore your throat design and how it shapes your unique communication, you can grab your Human Design Energetic Blueprint, or you can book a session with me to go over such. And those links are in the show notes. Until next time, remember to find beauty every day and seek the magic in the mundane. Thanks for tuning in today. As always, take what resonates, leave the rest. Let whatever landed move through you in whatever way it needs to or wants to. And also, if you want to explore more, you'll find more information in the show notes. If this episode stirred something in you, please share it out or leave a quick review. It helps so much and I really appreciate it. And remember, this work is about integration and it always starts with self-trust.